Welcome to the Oil and Gas Report, brought to you by Katch. I'm your host, Rob Hislop. We have moved all our equipment out of our Edmonton-based studio and have headed over to Vancouver. We're in this city for the Globe 2012 conference. Now, in case you're not familiar with it, it's something that's actually been around for quite a while. It started back in 1990 and goes every 2 years. What it does is it brings together leaders of industry, all sorts of people from various industries, and they're talking about trying to make the world a better place. We've been fortunate enough to land a lot of interviews, corporate executives, international agencies, urban leaders, financial executives as well, government policymakers, as well as environmental industry executives. Of course, being from Alberta, we've got a lot of oil sands representation as well. And again, this is the Globe 2012 conference. It's held in March in Vancouver. The theme this year, building a sustainable economy for the 21st century. Joining us now is Michael Rosenfeld. And Michael, you're here representing the UK at Globe 2012. Perhaps you tried to tell me your title in that. It's quite lengthy. Even looking at your card, it's quite lengthy. So perhaps you can tell us what your role is.
Sure. I serve as Vice Consul at the British Consulate General, and I lead the clean technology sector for UK Trade and Investment. UK Trade and Investment is the British government's international business development department. It's part of the Foreign Office and part of the Department of Business, Innovation and Skills.
And you sir have the longest title I have ever heard.
Well, Vice Consul or Sector Lead, that's fine.
Well, tell me about it, because I think a lot of Canadians would be able to relate to Great Britain and the UK because of our close connection. What is happening there when it comes to clean technology, and how much of a priority is it?
Well, the clean technology sector in the UK is a major priority for the British government. It's seen as a sector that will lead the UK into new economic prosperity. It's an important sector because the UK has signed up to ambitious carbon reduction targets through the EU, the European Union, and those are binding targets. Those targets include reducing CO2 emissions by 80% by 2050. Those are from 1990 levels. How are we going to do that? Through clean technology products, services, and technologies. Clean energy, water technologies, green building, electric vehicles, a whole host of activities and technologies that are in place to foster a transition to a clean technology, clean energy, sustainable economy.
Now, that's a huge jump, because I imagine if it was from today's values, it'd be a little bit easier to attain. But back in the 90s, people weren't quite as concerned about the environment as they are today. Do you feel there's pressure to try and meet these goals, or does it just seem like it's a natural progression to get there?
Well, quite frankly, there's a lot of pressure to meet those goals. That pressure comes from the legally binding targets that the UK has agreed to as part of the EU, being part of the EU. So how do we get there? We have to reduce our dependence upon fossil fuels. We're looking at ways to do that. Our oil, for example, in the North Sea is running out. Our natural gas is running out. In fact, the UK is now a net importer of natural gas from Norway and from Ukraine. Mm-hmm. The UK really wants to put itself in a position where it's more independent for supply, for energy supply and security issues.
Well, I mean, as an outsider looking in, that seems to be the way the UK operates, is to be independent. I mean, it is an island, you know, and to be as self-sufficient as it can be. Does that seem fair?
It is an island. It's an island of about 65 million people. And in terms of energy usage and in terms of CO2 emissions, it's not a great emitter of CO2. And in this relative scheme of things, it's not a great user of energy. However, it sees itself as a leader, and it sees itself as a global leader, and has a message to send to the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. I think that the UK has technologies, as demonstrated by the kind of companies that we've brought to Globe 2012, 15 different companies in a variety of clean technology fields, ranging from fuel cells and hydrogen to water hydro power, to waste cleanup, to capturing methane from landfills. All of these things contribute to making the UK a leader in clean technology. In fact, a recent Ernst & Young study placed the UK as the 5th most attractive nation for clean technology.
Okay. Now, with clean technology means a change of thought. It can also mean investment, because if you're going to be reducing your carbon footprint, companies are going to have to invest in safety measures, in cleanup materials, and ways to prevent things from happening as well. How do you convince those companies that this is a good investment?
Well, the UK has some government programs and policies in place that encourage investment, and we love to attract companies from around the world to the UK. The UK has an open economy. We need some technologies like the offshore wind, which is probably the leading renewable energy source at the moment. We need turbine manufacturers, we need blade manufacturers, we need the supply chain, and the UK has incentives in place to encourage and promote companies to come into the UK. It also does support domestic companies with a variety of programs to make the clean tech sector very attractive.
Right. You're talking about new technology, but I'm talking about, say, you've got your oil industry, you've got your gas industry as well. Those industries are going to have to change, because even if you're running out of the supply, they're still going to be around for a while.
That's right.
And so they've got to adapt. They've got to do some things, you know, perhaps change the way they do things on their well sites and that. How do you convince them that investing in, say, safety technology or clean technology is the way to go when they perhaps haven't had to do it in the past?
I think the market is dictating that for them. Aberdeen, for example, is the energy capital of the UK. It's up in the east coast of Scotland, and it is where all of the oil development and work for the North Sea emanates. And as the oil industry begins to decline in the North Sea, companies are shifting their technology opportunities to the clean tech wind industry, for example. So we're seeing companies now looking at floating wind platforms. That is basically an old technology that was used by the oil industry. Floating platforms was for deep offshore oil production. Now they're using these technologies and adapting them for offshore wind projects.
Do you find that there's a mindset that says, you know, if I spend so many $1,000s today setting up a clean environment around some, you know, an industry, that I can see where it'll benefit me down the road?
I think we're seeing companies beginning to realize that they do need to make the investment, and there is a good return on that investment down the road. For many companies, they would like to see it happen faster than it may be actually happening at the moment. But because the targets are so ambitious, the government continually provides ways to make investment in the clean technologies more attractive. For example, now we have a scheme in the UK is renewable obligation credits. For every megawatt of power that is produced, you get one renewable obligation credit, which is tradable, and it's worth, depending, it changes, but it's about 40 to 50 pounds a megawatt hour. Well, for offshore wind, actually for every megawatt you produce, you get 5 renewable obligation credits. It used to be 2, it started out as 1, then it became 2, and now it's up to 5. And that's been put into place to make the development of offshore wind more attractive to developers and investors.
Last question for you. Sustainability, that's what this conference is all about. You're in the business of sustainability. It seems like it could also be the catchphrase of the day, as opposed to something that people are really interested in doing. How do you convince our viewers otherwise?
Well, sustainability is really going to be the future because everything we do, every social issue we touch is going to be governed by sustainability. It's whether it's use of water, use of energy, use of natural resources. We have limited, finite resources. We've got to find ways to conserve, and alternatives to those resources, and we've put into place the financial mechanisms to make that attractive. And I think at the end of the day, possibly most people are motivated by love and money, and maybe not in that order.
Fair enough. Thank you very much, Michael. We've been chatting with Michael Rosenfeld, the Vice Consul with the British Consulate.